Welcome to Tech Tuesday, and today I'm going to talk about, what is Docker and what is a container? Because I've spent the last, almost 2 weeks head deep in this now, and I need to vent. And I need to let the information out because there's just so much in there. But, a couple of months ago I explained the idea of a virtual machine, which is basically that you can have an entire machine, virtually, an entire computer setup running on another computer. So instead of actually setting up a physical hardware box and then install an operating system and all your programs and everything on that, you can actually run it in a window as the name suggests, a virtual machine. You don't have to actually go and set it up, plug it in, build the thing, whatever, buy hardware, whatever. You just use elements of your existing hardware, resources of your existing hardware, and run a complete separate system for testing and stuff. So what Docker does is, and Docker is the name of the product or system or whatever that does this, is it basically takes, this is where containers come in. So Docker's the name of the product. Containers is what it does. It basically breaks down parts of a system of whatever task you're trying to do into separate containers. So the containers then can be swapped out and moved at different points, to upgrade versions or to change things or stuff like that. So for example, you have your base operating system, then you install Docker on top of that as a application service, that kind of thing. So then it sits on top of your operating system, and then it handles the containers after that. So you might have your program in a container, but then after that you might have whatever web platform you're using on the program. So say for example you're running what's a web hosting thing, Nginx or Apache or something like that, whatever you're choosing to run. I think most people run Nginx these days. But anyway, you're running that in a container, but then after that, then you need, say, SQL. MySQL server. MySQL server then runs on a container on top of Nginx or as well as Nginx, depending on how it's coded. And basically it works in layers then. So instead of then having to upgrade the entire thing, you could upgrade your base image, which, just update the version of that and then keep everything on top of that. Then you'd have your data in the layer on top, actually probably going the other way, deeper. So a layer deeper, depending on how you draw it, but you have another layer with your data. So you could swap out the containers underneath with the service serving the website, and then the MySQL, which is database, just in case you didn't know. And you could swap that and upgrade versions, but you still keep your actual data in the separate end container intact. It's actually really, really, really cool, because now instead of having to have all the overhead of running a full virtual machine, you can just run these containers on top of your existing operating system. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. You've got different types of operating systems, and the ones that you're probably familiar with are Windows and Mac OS, because they're the ones that most end users use. Servers are a little bit different. You have Windows Server, you have Linux or Unix-based operating systems. And now the problem that I've been having is trying to run Docker on Windows Server to run Linux images. So the way that Docker usually works is that it actually takes, because it's not running a full virtual machine, it's just running on top of your operating system, it still utilizes your existing operating system kernel. This is the best way I can think of to explain this. So it's the same core. You're just basically pulling functions in and out of that same core, being the kernel. Problem is, when you have two different operating systems, they don't share the same kernel, so you've got a lot of mixing and matching going on. So there is a system to do that, but problem is, because it's been in development for so long, there's so many different guides and tutorials and so much information out there that they all span different times of development, different versions, all that kind of thing, and it kind of made it very, very confusing and very, very complicated. But bottom line is now, in that computer over there, well, actually the computer's over there, that's just the remote session to it, there are now Linux containers running on a Windows Server based system, even though they're Linux applications. Don't ask me to go into more detail than that because my head hurts. But if you actually want to know more information about that, we can talk about it. But it's just a really cool system once you actually get your head around it. By the way, the Windows Server stuff is much more complicated. You can actually run Docker on a desktop, and it's much, much simpler. if it was the case, I would probably have been done with what I was doing in like a day or two, and that would have been fine. But obviously servers need to be more reliable, there's more configuration to them, there's things to take into consideration like, well, what about running in the background? What about service startup, like, that being running in the background? What about it running without it logging in? Again, running as a service. All sorts of stuff. Then obviously you've got stability. If it's on a server, it's got to be reliable and all sorts of things. I just realized I've probably made a whole bunch of assumptions that you guys know what I'm talking about with all of this stuff, in the fact that I'm talking about servers and desktops and Linux and Windows and kernels and all the rest of it. Again, if you have any questions about this, I'm just brain dumping my mass amounts of information that I've taken in on this system, which apparently has been around for a long time. Again, Docker runs containers. That's the gist of it. What's your takeaway from this, though? I'm a nerd. I think that's pretty much all the takeaway I can give you. But like, if you actually want to play with it, like, by all means, go and play with it and then come and ask me some questions. Even if I don't know the answers, I would like to find out, because, like I said, I'm like a week and a half to 2 weeks head deep into this stuff, and it's just Docker everywhere, containers everywhere, and it's been a lot of late nights, but it's been very, very interesting. And I'm actually going to implement it on a whole bunch of stuff here, which goes back to the corporate network project here that I've sort of started on, because that involved Docker as well. And I haven't got as far as I would have liked with that. But anyway, point is, takeaway is, I'm a nerd. If you want to ask questions and try out Docker, go ahead, do that, and I will probably revisit this topic in the future. But if you stuck with that and nerded out with me all the way through, I'm sorry, but I also hope that you're having a great day, and I hope to see you next time. And if you'd like to do that, you can follow or subscribe. Thanks. Bye.